On our number 1 in the list is Bernie Madoff Ponzi scheme. The infamous Bernie Madoff Ponzi scheme, the largest financial fraud in U.S. history. Madoff, once a highly respected figure on Wall Street, promised investors consistent, high returns. But what they didn't know was that Madoff wasn't investing their money at all. Instead, he was using funds from new investors to pay returns to earlier ones, creating the illusion of a profitable business. For years, Madoff's scheme went undetected, as he managed to maintain the trust of his clients, which included individuals, charities, and even celebrities. But in December 2008, the scheme unraveled when Madoff confessed to his sons that his entire business was one big lie. The fallout was catastrophic. Thousands of people lost their life savings, and the total fraud was estimated at $65 billion. Madoff was sentenced to 150 years in prison, and his name became synonymous with greed and deception. Next, we turn to Enron, the Houston-based energy company that became a symbol of corporate fraud in the early 2000s. Enron was once lauded as a powerhouse in the energy sector, with its stock price soaring to new heights. But beneath the surface, a different story was unfolding. Enron's executives were using accounting loopholes, special purpose entities, and outright lies to hide the company's massive debts and inflate its profits. The company's auditor, Arthur Andersen, was complicit in the fraud, shredding documents to cover up the wrongdoing. When the truth came out in 2001, Enron's stock plummeted from $90.75 to less than $1, and the company filed for bankruptcy. Thousands of employees lost their jobs and retirement savings, and investors were left with worthless shares. The scandal also led to the dissolution of Arthur Andersen, one of the world's largest accounting firms. The Enron scandal didn't just impact its direct victims. It also led to major changes in corporate governance and accounting practices, including the passage of the Sarbanes-Oxley Act, which imposed stricter regulations on financial reporting. On number 3, the Fyre Festival fraud was marketed as the ultimate luxury music festival in 2017, promising exclusive experiences on a private island in the Bahamas. Influencers promoted it as the event of the century, with promises of gourmet food, luxury accommodations, and performances by top artists. But when attendees arrived, they found a scene of chaos. There were no luxurious villas, only disaster relief tents. The gourmet meals were nothing more than prepackaged sandwiches. The promised artists were nowhere to be found. What was supposed to be an Instagram-worthy experience quickly turned into a nightmare. The mastermind behind Fyre Festival, Billy McFarland, had grossly misled both investors and festival goers. He had no realistic plan to deliver what was promised, and as the event approached, it became clear that the festival was doomed to fail. McFarland was eventually charged with fraud and sentenced to 6 years in prison. The Fyre Festival not only embarrassed its organizers but also exposed the dangers of influencer marketing and the power of social media in creating hype without substance. Number 4, the Theranos deception. Theranos, a Silicon Valley startup founded by Elizabeth Holmes, promised to revolutionize healthcare with a device that could run hundreds of tests using just a few drops of blood. The idea was groundbreaking and attracted high-profile investors, including Rupert Murdoch and the Walton family, as well as a board filled with former U.S. Secretaries of State and military leaders. But behind the scenes, Theranos was far from delivering on its promises. The technology simply didn't work as advertised. Employees who raised concerns were silenced, and the company continued to deceive both patients and investors. In 2015, a Wall Street Journal investigation revealed the truth. Theranos machines were inaccurate, and the company had been using conventional machines for most of its tests. The revelation led to the company's downfall, and in 2018, Holmes and former Theranos president Ramesh Sunny Balwani were charged with fraud. Holmes was found guilty on multiple counts of fraud in 2022, marking the end of a scandal that had shaken Silicon Valley and raised serious questions about the culture of hype and secrecy in tech startups. Number 5, the Nigerian prince email scam. While not as large in scale as the others, the Nigerian prince email scam is one of the most enduring and widely recognized cons in history. It typically starts with an email from a supposed Nigerian prince or government official, who claims to need help transferring millions of dollars out of the country. In return, the recipient is promised a hefty reward. Despite its obvious red flags, this scam has been surprisingly effective, tricking countless victims around the world into handing over personal information, bank details, and even large sums of money. It relies on a combination of greed and desperation, preying on those who believe they can get rich quick. Over the years, the Nigerian prince scam has evolved, taking on new forms and adapting to modern technology. Today, you might encounter it as a phishing email, a fraudulent lottery notification, or a fake job offer. But the core principle remains the same. Deceive the target into believing they've won a windfall, only to rob them blind. The lesson here? If an offer seems too good to be true, especially one that arrives unsolicited in your inbox, it's best to hit delete. On number 6, the Volkswagen emissions scandal. Next, let's talk about a scandal that shook the automotive industry to its core. The Volkswagen emissions scandal, also known as Dieselgate. In 2015, the Environmental Protection Agency, EPA, discovered that Volkswagen had installed software in millions of its diesel vehicles that allowed them to cheat emissions tests. The software detected when the car was being tested and reduced emissions to legal levels. However, during normal driving conditions, these vehicles emitted up to 40 times the legal limit of nitrogen oxides, harmful pollutants linked to respiratory problems and environmental damage. Volkswagen initially denied any wrongdoing, but as evidence mounted, the company was forced to admit the truth. The fallout was immense. VW faced billions in fines, legal costs, and recalls, not to mention the irreparable damage to its reputation. The scandal wasn't just a case of corporate fraud. It was a public health crisis, with millions of people unknowingly exposed to harmful pollutants. Dieselgate serves as a stark reminder that even the most trusted brands can engage in deceptive practices, putting profit over people and the planet. Number 7. The Wells Fargo fake account scandal. In 2016, another major scandal rocked the financial sector, this time involving one of the biggest banks in the United States, Wells Fargo. For years, employees at Wells Fargo had been secretly opening millions of unauthorized bank and credit card accounts in the names of their customers, all in a bid to meet aggressive sales targets set by management. Customers were unaware that these accounts had been created, and many only found out after they started incurring fees for accounts they never authorized. The scandal was exposed when employees, under intense pressure to meet quotas, began blowing the whistle. The fallout was severe. Wells Fargo was fined $185 million, and the CEO was forced to resign. The bank's reputation took a major hit, and it was ordered to pay back customers and overhaul its sales practices. This scandal highlighted the dangers of corporate pressure and the lengths to which employees might go to meet unrealistic goals. It also underscored the importance of consumer vigilance. Always keep an eye on your accounts and question any suspicious activity. Number 8. The Telex-free pyramid scheme. The Telex-free pyramid scheme, a multi-billion-dollar scam that targeted unsuspecting people around the world, particularly in immigrant communities. Telex-free was promoted as a legitimate telecommunications company that offered VoIP services. However, the real money was made by recruiting others into the scheme. Participants were encouraged to invest in Telex-free and recruit others to do the same, with promises of high returns. But like all pyramid schemes, Telex-free was unsustainable. The majority of the profits paid out were simply the money brought in by new recruits. In 2014, the scheme collapsed, and the company was exposed as a fraud. The founders were arrested, and the U.S. Securities and Exchange Commission, SEC, charged them with operating a massive Ponzi and pyramid scheme. Telex-free's collapse left thousands of people, many of whom had invested their life savings, with nothing. The scheme serves as a cautionary tale about the dangers of get-rich-quick schemes and the importance of understanding where your money is going before you invest. Number 9. Martin Shkreli and Turing Pharmaceuticals. In 2015, Martin Shkreli, the CEO of Turing Pharmaceuticals, became one of the most hated figures in America when he raised the price of a life-saving drug, Daraprim, from $13.50 to $750 per pill. The drug was essential for treating parasitic infections, particularly in people with weakened immune systems. Shkreli justified the price hike as a business decision, arguing it would fund research for new drugs. But to the public, it was seen as price gouging, exploiting vulnerable patients for profit. Shkreli's smug attitude in interviews only fueled public outrage. He became known as the Pharma Bro, a symbol of greed in the pharmaceutical industry. Though his price hike wasn't illegal, it led to calls for reform in drug pricing policies. In a twist of fate, Shkreli was later convicted of securities fraud for unrelated business dealings. He was sentenced to 7 years in prison, but his actions left a lasting scar on the pharmaceutical industry and sparked a broader conversation about the ethics of drug pricing. Number 10. The subprime mortgage crisis. The subprime mortgage crisis of 2007 to 2008 marked one of the darkest financial periods in U.S. history. For years, banks had been offering risky subprime mortgages to borrowers with poor credit histories, enticed by the allure of short-term profits. Homeowners were given loans they couldn't afford, often with little to no oversight. These loans were bundled into mortgage-backed securities, which were sold to investors as low-risk assets. But as homeowners began to default on their mortgages, the house of cards collapsed. The ripple effect led to a global financial meltdown. Major banks like Lehman Brothers went bankrupt, and millions of Americans lost their homes and savings. The crisis exposed deep flaws in the financial system, leading to massive government bailouts and the near-total collapse of the housing market. In the aftermath, sweeping financial reforms were introduced to prevent a future crisis. But the legacy of the subprime mortgage crisis is still felt today in the housing market and the economy at large. And there you have it, the 10 most notorious scams in U.S. history. From Wall Street to Silicon Valley, from car companies to banks, these stories remind us that deception can come from anywhere. It's not just small-time con artists. Even the biggest corporations and the most trusted individuals can be involved in fraud. In each case, countless lives were affected. Savings were wiped out, careers were destroyed, and trust was broken. But these stories also teach us the importance of skepticism and vigilance. In today's fast-paced world, where opportunities and offers seem endless, it's crucial to stay informed and cautious. If you found this video informative, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more content. And remember, the best defense against fraud is a well-informed mind. Stay safe, and see you in the next video.